Kings and powerhouses are replaced by generations. Create a world of royal power, fight for the world with soldiers, and compose a song of chaotic times. The war between the two countries, regime changes, and chaotic generations began from here. The divine path has opened, the light has created a society, the struggle for royal power, the chaos of barren rocks, the emergence of heroes in chaotic times, and the emergence of talented people from different generations. The stream of water and clouds, the legend of the sand god, the ancient palace, create today's glory. The abyss of light, the land of the sea, the ruins of the shimmering sun, and the shores of the tides, where soldiers rise and battle ends, are magnificent colors that can be written by humans. The 3 emperors and 6 generals created the world, and the divine path of the 4 King Star Palace was opened. After 100 battles, the fierce heroes suffered from the calamity of the desolate rocks, and the world ruled the world with 10,000 bones. The Owl Emperor fights in the heavenly realm, the Tsar meets the army king, the criminalized emperor goes to hell, and the 3 emperors compete for the world. The Holy Emperor comes to the mortal world, and with one step, the royal power is lifted. The emperor's head is at an end of sin, and the cycle of reincarnation opens in the world. 10 forbidden areas, eternal divine weapons, millions of magic, sealing cavalry battle. This is a world of the strong, this is an era of the wise, this is a story belonging to humans, this is a world without gods, and this is also a legend created by countless ordinary people. Before Dragon Zero, there were countless spells, but after Dragon Zero, there will never be any magic. Dragon and Magic, Dragon Zero. Endless magic keywords of the novel. Long Zero without pop-ups. Download the complete collection of Long Zero TXT, and read the latest chapters of Long Zero. Chapter 1. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wedge. There is a long and deep canyon that spans the eastern part of the Crimea continent, and from a distance, it looks like a long scar has been cut on this continent. This huge and deep canyon is known as the terrifying abyss buried with death and soul, because it is said that once anyone enters this canyon without knowledge, they will never be able to come out again, and even their souls will never receive the favor of God again. They will be forever imprisoned in the endless abyss. In the eyes of some knowledgeable scholars and those knowledgeable sages, this is a burial dragon valley. Legend has it that dragons, upon sensing their impending death, will fly into the bottomless abyss of the burial dragon valley, where they will wait for the arrival of death. No one knows why, even the great wizard in the holy garden doesn't know why. It is this mysterious burial dragon valley that constantly makes people feel scared, but also constantly attracts those brave warriors who dare to take risks. The sun in the Tamassite desert to the east of the Moyue Empire appeared blurry in the sky. On the desolate Gobi, it is difficult to see any vitality. This is a desert, but it's not very hot. Sometimes, not only is it not hot, but it can also be very cold. This is also the northern entrance of the burial dragon valley. At this moment, there is a young man standing at the entrance of the valley, with his back facing the deep valley, as if he has just come out of it. The young man was very thin and frail, wearing a tattered gray-black wizard hat that covered his face. Not far away was a large boulder, and the young man lay on the edge of the boulder, taking out dry food and water from his bag. He wrapped his stomach and looked at this desolate and peaceful scene. There is not a lack of vitality in the desert, and a vulture flew into the sky at some point. The listless vulture circled in the sky, seemingly having noticed a rare visitor from the desert. The vulture bird flew for a while and landed on the young man. The boy didn't move, he was just looking at the bird, and the vulture seemed to be watching him as well. After a while, the vulture finally couldn't help but peck at the piece of flesh in the boy's hand. The boy still didn't move, he was watching the vulture bird eat the meat in his hand, watching it finish it, until it flew away before sleeping with its bundle on its back. As dusk approached, the young man woke up and lifted the big magic hat on his head, revealing his face. Gwazi's face, black eyes, and a few strands of white hair sprouting from under the brim of his hat. The boy took out a yellowed map from his body and placed it on the ground, looking carefully. There were already several places on the map marked with forks with red pens. The boy's fingers gestured on the map and finally stopped at a place called Dibiles. Tiberias, the capital of the Magic Moon Empire. A subtle smile appeared at the corner of the boy's mouth, and he softly called out, "Let's go." Not long after the words fell, a huge shadow appeared on the ground, and there seemed to be a huge object flapping its wings in the air. The young man leaped up, and the shadow quickly disappeared at the far end. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Magic Crystal Tower of Kurantine Academy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Magic Crystal Tower of Kurantine Academy. Tiberias, the capital of the Magic Moon Empire, is a massive city with a population of 17 million, a massive magical city. In this world of magic and knights, everyone aspires to become a noble magician and a noble knight. In Thebes, everywhere is filled with traces of magic. The magical fountain on the square, the beautiful and charming magical streetlights, the procession performing magical acrobatics, and a few children showing off their newly learned magic today, it must be said that this is a beloved city. When Bing Jixie arrived at this magical imperial capital, it was already the 7th day after leaving the Burial Dragon Valley. It was already dark, and Bing Jixie stood at the intersection of a street, pushing her big hat on her forehead. Her clear black eyes looked left and right, and finally saw the magical sign of a hotel not far away. "Waiter, another 3 glasses of dark beer from Digger." The noise echoed from the basement of the hotel. Bing Jixie arrived at the hotel and a front desk member bent down and asked, "Hey, that little gentleman wearing a magic hat, are you here to stay?" Bing Jixie lifted her head and pushed the very unsuitable magic hat again, saying, "Yes, please give me a cleaner house." "Okay, please come with me." The front desk narrowed their eyes and smiled at him. This little guy looked very cute in her eyes. Arriving at the counter on the first floor, he said to another waiter, "Mr. Little Magician, please have a clean room." The waitress took out a notebook and opened it, taking notes while asking, "May I ask your name?" "Celeste Bing Jixie." "Bing Jixie Dao." Surname first and last. After the waitress finished recording, she handed him a notebook and pen and said, 17 magic month silver coins, Mr. Celeste, please sign here. Here is your key. Bing Jixie signed his name and took the key. The female service representative saw Bing Jixie's appearance and said, "Oh, you look so cute. Would you like to go down and eat something, or should we deliver the food to your room?" "Please deliver it to my room." "Can I help you with your luggage?" the previous waiter asked. "Ice Child Evil Dao." "Thank you, no need, please take me to the room." Arriving at room 308, the waiter opened the door and said, "This is your room. Do you need anything else to take a look?" "Thank you." Bing Jixie walked into the room and looked around. The room was very simple and not very big, which was his satisfaction. He put his bag aside and turned around, saying, "It's okay." The waiter said, "If you need anything else, please come downstairs to find us. Our service will be very attentive. Also, I hope you stay comfortably. This is your tip." "Oh, thank you." The waiter took the tip of 2 magic moon silver coins and was pleasantly surprised. Only adults usually take the initiative to tip. "I hope you have a pleasant stay at our hotel." After a while, dinner was served, consisting of a large piece of crispy fried pork cutlet, 3 desserts, and a glass of bubble juice. Bing Jixie's stomach was already growling with hunger, and she quickly swept away everything she had eaten. After finishing the meal, Bing Jixie closed the door and took out the old map and a small notebook with a black cover from her small bag. Flipping through the notebook, I came across a page of the Charm Moon Emperor's capital, Tiberias, and the Cullantine School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. There are a total of 274 colleges and schools of different levels in Dibiles, but only the Cullantine School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is one of the world-renowned comprehensive colleges. The size of Kurantine College is like a small city, capable of accommodating around 800,000 students, with over 1 million students studying here at most. Kurantine Academy is not only a symbol, pride, and strength of the Magic Moon Empire, but even the Holy Garden has said that Kurantine Academy brings vitality to the world. There is a huge magic crystal tower in Kurantine Academy. It is said that the crystal tower contains countless magical materials and historical scrolls, as well as some secrets that outsiders may not know. These secrets constantly tempt everyone who wants to explore the great magic crystal tower. Bing Jixie closed her notebook and murmured in her mouth. Late at night, the magic clock pointed to 11:30, and Bing Jixie, who was sleeping on the bed with a small bag, suddenly sat up. He walked to the window, and there were very few pedestrians outside the street. Most of the guests in the hotel were already asleep. He silently closed his eyes and formed a magic circle with both hands in the void. As the light dissipated, Bing Jixie fiercely opened her eyes and flew out of the window, stepping on the edge of the window. Kurantine Academy is indeed very large, but the great magic crystal tower is not difficult to find. From afar, Ice Child Evil can see a huge magic tower emitting a blue halo. A group of night patrolling guards walked by, and the Ice Child Evil, hidden in the flower bed, lightly stepped down and jumped into the air. A slight wind element vibration shook his body, supporting him to quickly fly towards the direction of the Great Magic Crystal Tower. Not far from the Great Magic Crystal Tower, Ice Child Evil drifted into the flowers and plants that could be hidden. He had already seen the enormous size of the Crystal Tower, but upon closer inspection, it still surprised him slightly. The Great Magic Crystal Tower is in an equilateral hexagonal shape, with smooth and sparkling walls that appear to be a huge piece of magic sapphire. There were no guards around the Crystal Tower, but Bing Jixie didn't rush over. He noticed a few fireflies nearby and lightly touched one with his fingers. The firefly that was touched immediately flew towards the Crystal Tower, but suddenly disappeared halfway through. The phantom magic barrier invented by magician Camille is really quite impressive in this academy. A smile unconsciously appeared on his face under the big magic hat. The Unreal Magic Barrier is a powerful space magic barrier created hundreds of years ago by the first space magic wizard in history, Camille Sendarin. This type of magic barrier belongs to a state of dual activation magic formation, and once the barrier is set up, it will immediately activate the visual effect of the magic formation. People outside the boundary cannot see any creatures inside, while those inside the boundary can see every move of all creatures outside the boundary. Once a creature outside the boundary touches a creature within the boundary will immediately produce a second boundary effect on the invading creature, creating a virtual space illusion. Bing Jixie took off the big magic hat on her head and a head of snow-white hair spilled out. He placed his hat in his arms and approached the point where the firefly had disappeared with great caution. He then found several small insects and crashed into the barrier, with one hand sticking to the spot where the insects had disappeared, and the other hand drawing a magic circle on the grass and pressing it against it. When the circle was neutral, it emitted a faint light. The hand in the air slowly advanced a little and advanced within the boundary. Quickly, the array light of the other subordinate became stronger, but in just the blink of an eye, the light dissipated. With a smile on her lips, Bing Jixie stood up and walked into the barrier with dignity. Upon entering the barrier, I immediately discovered many fireflies and insects flying in the void. There were also many flowers and plants on the ground inside the barrier, and teams of guards guarded around the Crystal Tower. But now, Ice Child Evil can see them, but they can't see him, because Ice Child Evil has already used the small magic circle just now to put his body in the same state as the Unreal Magic Barrier, that is to say, he is one with this barrier. Ice Child Evil walked up to the guards and cast spiritual magic spells on them one by one before pushing open the Crystal Tower gate integrated with the Great Magic Blue Crystal Tower. There is no guard inside the tower, as Ice Child Evil has long known. The sacred forbidden area of Kurantine Academy does not allow anyone to enter casually. The tower is large, but it doesn't appear empty at all. Not only is it not empty, but it appears very crowded because there are countless bookshelves filled here, and all the books are shrouded in this blue halo. Bing Jixie took 2 steps back and lifted her head. This was only the first floor, and the stairs on the left clearly led to the second floor. He walked up the stairs without even reading the books on the first floor, knowing that there wouldn't be anything he needed on the first floor. Walking up the stairs, just as I was about to go up, I suddenly heard a person's voice echoing inside the tower. "Stop your steps, you can't go up." Bing Jixie's heart was shaken. He didn't expect to be discovered, but there was no hint of panic on his face. Instead, he stood still in the area without moving. The sound of a person's footsteps gradually rang out in the tower, not very loud, but particularly clear on this quiet night. Bing Jixie took out a big magic hat from her arms and put it on her head, then took out a face scarf and tied it up. The person walked this way and said, "If you can come in here, it means you are a very capable person. I don't want to fight with you. If you come here for the magic scriptures, I can promise you that you can freely read this layer of magic books, but please give up the idea of going up." Bing Jixie turned around and lowered the brim of her hat, standing quietly between 2 bookshelves waiting. Quickly, an old man with silver hair and white beard came across from Bing Jixie. The old man was surprised to find that a child had broken into the tower. He straightened his face and said, "Please say your name. Who are you?" Bing Jixie didn't say anything, and the wind elements around her body surged. Her body quickly flew towards the old man, cutting diagonally with one hand and emitting a cold white light in her hand. The elements around the old man also moved, lightly moving his body backwards. He saw his right hand grabbing in the void, and a flame claw directly grabbing towards the hand that was hitting him. The wind elements around Bing Jixie's body were excited and changed the direction of her body out of thin air, avoiding the claw. The cold white light in his hand changed at the same time, turning into an ice cream and throwing it directly at the old man. The old man's consciousness moved lightly, and as he saw the ice that was about to be pierced, it was immediately blocked by a thin ice shield rising out of thin air. The ice child evil foot stepped on the bookshelf and threw several ice creams from different angles. Several ice shields appeared around the old man in corresponding places, blocking them one after another. Ice Jixie smiled in her eyes and took advantage of his obstruction to immediately snatch the door and flee. By the time the old man caught up, he had already disappeared from sight. The old man grabbed a gradually vaporizing ice in his hand and couldn't help but mutter to himself, "What kind of person is this kid? He controls the wind element and ice element so proficiently, but uses combat skills." Returning from the window to the hotel room, Bing Jixie pulled off her handkerchief and threw it on the bed. "I didn't expect there to be such a powerful expert at Kurantine Academy. I was so careful that I was still discovered. Maybe what I wanted was really on that tower. But this failure, it will be difficult to get in again." Bing Jixie lay in bed, closing her eyes and thinking about what to do. Suddenly, a scream came from inside the hotel, and after a while, there was a commotion in the hallway. The waiter came out of the room carrying a snake and said to a trembling blonde girl in the hallway, "I'm really sorry, miss. This is our boss's son's pet, which disappeared this morning. I didn't expect it to be in your room. But it won't hurt anyone." A boy grabbed the blonde girl's hand and said, "But your boss's son's pet scared her. I can only say 1,000 apologies for this. If the lady is willing, our store is willing to offer a delicious ice cream as compensation," the waiter said apologetically with a worried face. The blonde girl patted her frightened heart and said, "Well, since that's the case, I can't sleep now. Please take the dim sum to the first floor and I'll go there to have a rest. Thank you very much for accepting our apology." "I will deliver the freezing point," the waiter said, holding the snake. "Dear customers, I apologize for disturbing your rest. It's already okay now." The guests who came out to see the excitement entered their own rooms one after another. Several boys and girls gathered around the blonde girl and said, "Come and send more dim sum. We need to chat with our friends for a while. It's all you damn snakes. It's too bad. Tomorrow we will take the application exam for Kurantine College." The waiter apologizes again. The registration exam for Kurantine Academy. Bing Jixie smiled and closed the door. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Cullantine College. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Cullantine College. The next day, Bing Jixie woke up and checked out of the room, asking a waiter, "Excuse me, is today the registration exam for Cullantine College?" "Yes, these 3 days are the annual entrance exams for Kurantine College." The waiter saw him wearing a big magic hat and said, "Do you want to study magic for Kurantine?" Bing Jixie nodded. The waiter smiled and said, "You have a lot of courage. However, Kurantine's exam requirements are very strict, and the tuition fees are very expensive. If you haven't taken the exam or don't have enough money, it's better to choose another school." Bing Jixie nodded and smiled, "Thank you for your advice. I understand. May I ask which side the teleportation array is going to?" The waiter said, "Turn left when you go out, go to the third fork, then walk on the right, and then cross the intersection and walk forward. If you don't remember, there is a map of this area near our store door." Bing Jixie once again thanked and walked out. A map was indeed carved on a large stone slab on the wall next to her. Bing Jixie followed the direction and arrived at the teleportation array, only to see a queue of elders in front of the teleportation array. During their conversation, it turned out that they were all rushing to register for the exam at Kurantine College. "There's no way, he can only queue up with them. Magic teleportation formation, divided into entering formation and exiting formation. Only when the entry and exit are interconnected can they be used. Generally, an ordinary magic can be connected to dozens or even dozens of magic spells when entering the formation, so that it can reach various parts of the city through the teleportation array. Magic teleportation arrays are usually maintained by magic crystal arrays for energy. Generally, in cities, there is a small magic altar next to the teleportation array, and the magic crystal of the main body of the teleportation array is hidden in the magic altar. When the magic crystals of the teleportation array main body are used up, there are usually people from the city management or local magic guild responsible for replacing them. In general, in cities, in order to reduce the burden on the local government and extend the use time of a replacement crystal, magic arrays are usually in a semi-activated state, only to maintain the operation of the teleportation array. To use them, users must contribute magic crystals themselves, which is also the origin of the magic altar next to the teleportation array. So every country will have some very low-quality magic crystals for sale, which are specifically used for teleportation arrays and are also quite cheap, without adding any economic burden to the people. "Hey young man, are you going to Kurantine Academy?" It turned out that a middle-aged man in his 30s was speaking to Bing Jixie in front of him, holding a little boy of 5 or 6 years old in his arms. Bing Jixie responded. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Then come in too. The 2 crystals here can just teleport the 3 of us." "Thank you." Bing Jixie smiled and stepped into the magic circle. The middle-aged man was just about to put the crystal into the altar, but was preempted by Bing Jixie. Ice Child Evil pressed her hand against the center of the magic altar's formation, and the magic that surged out of her palm immediately activated the magic altar. The teleportation array below quickly emitted a strong light, and the small map carved on the inclined surface of the altar also emitted light. In the midst of the middle-aged man's surprise, Bing Jixie reached out her finger and pressed the teleportation marker point of Kurantine Academy on the map. With a flash of light, the 3 of them disappeared into the magic circle. After coming out of the magic battle, the middle-aged man exclaimed in surprise, "Young man, I didn't expect you to be a magician. Seeing you wearing a magic hat, I thought you were just a magic apprentice." Ordinary magic apprentices don't have as much magic as you. Bing Jixia nodded and said with a slight smile at the corner of her mouth, it's nothing. If you want to talk to Cullantine, you still need to have this skill. Are you here to learn magic? The middle-aged man said, then we'll be separated. I'll take my son to apply for the magic preschool class. At your age, you should go to that side, not the same way as us. Goodbye. Bing Jixia was not interested in talking to passers-by. She held on to her magic hat, bent down to perform a magician's etiquette, and then ran over there. The middle-aged man smiled and said to his son, Son, you also need to work hard to become a wizard. The cute child nodded his little head hard. The registration office of Bing Jixia's age has long been crowded with people. After waiting in line for a long time, it was finally his turn to sign up. The muscular man who accepted the registration said, the one who applied for the wizard exam is over there, this is for the martial arts exam. Bing Jixia pushed the magic hat that covered her eyes and saw that the team next to her was even longer. She immediately said, No, I'm here to apply for combat. The muscular male teacher looked up at him, pinched his thin arm, and laughed heartily, saying, Child, you really love to joke. To become a true warrior, you must have a strong physique, you know. Go there, don't delay others from registering. Bing Jixia was pulled aside by his hand. Bing Jixia let out a sigh and looked at the long queue, so she had to buy an ice cream and continue queuing. The one who accepted the registration of the magician was a beautiful and approachable female teacher with silver hair. Many boys who have completed their registration have not left yet, gathered around the table, causing Bing Jixia to squeeze in for a long time before enrolling. The silver-haired female teacher looked at the thin and weak ice child evil with a sweet smile and asked, A lovely little wizard has arrived. May I ask your name? Celeste is icy and childish. The silver-haired female teacher asked again, Did you come recommended by another school or did you come by yourself? I came by myself, madam. The silver-haired female teacher couldn't help but laugh when she heard him call her lady. She took out a form and handed it to him, saying, Please write your name, age, parents' names, and home address on it. Bing Jixia said, I am an orphan. Oh, I'm sorry, the silver-haired female teacher said sternly, then fill in your closest person and the person who raised you. Bing Jixia quickly filled it out with a pen. The silver-haired female teacher took a look and asked in surprise, Why did you always fill in your own name? I have always taken care of myself, and the closest person is also myself, right? Bing Jixia asked back, Isn't it okay to write like this? The silver-haired female teacher's eyes suddenly showed a look of surprise and pity. Don't you have anyone you know? Bing Jixia remained silent for half a day, unwilling to speak. The silver-haired female teacher let out a light sigh and pulled him to his side, whispering in his ear, You're so pitiful, but it's not possible to write like this. I'll give you another table, and you write the names of the people you know, but don't tell anyone else. Bing Jixia nodded and took over a new form to fill it out. The silver-haired female teacher took the form again and asked, Who is Abigail Darn? A dead grandpa, said Bing Jixia. The silver-haired female teacher was taken aback and had to ask again, What about Bernice? Is she a friend you know? Yes, said the ice child cult, it was a little dog I once raised, but it has also died. The silver-haired female teacher was completely speechless, but considering her age and lack of relatives, she signed a name and said, You should go to the exam according to the places written on the form. If you don't know how to get there, you can ask the students in the college. Thank you, madam. Bing Jixia walked into the college without looking back, holding the header of the form. Bing Jixia looked left and right all the way, but the college was too big and didn't know which direction to take. She stopped someone and asked, Hello, I'm sorry to bother you. May I ask how to get to the entrance exam room? Over there. The stopped student pointed in a direction and said, I'll take you there. I'll trouble you, said the Ice Child cult. The guy leading the way is slightly taller than Bing Jixie, with short golden hair. As it's the new semester after vacation, his face is full of vitality, and he feels like a very sunny person. Hello, my name is Peter Law, the classmate said while leading the way. Bing Jixie said, hello, my name is Celeste Bing Jixie. Luo scratched his golden hair and said, West Leicester, which symbolizes heaven and happiness, has a great surname. May I call you Bing Jixie? I'm sorry, please don't take my passion for it. No, of course not, said the Ice Child evil cult. Luo led him through several buildings in the college and turned a corner, saying, it seems like you're here to learn magic. Is your dream to become a famous wizard? Well, maybe, Bing Jixie replied nonchalantly. Luo smiled and said, that's a very distant and great dream. Luo Man thought he would also ask what his dream was, but after waiting for a while, he didn't speak and felt a bit bored. He had to say to himself, don't you ask me what my dream is. Sorry, I don't really like talking. Bingji said, what is your dream? My dream is to become a proud knight and carry forward our Pete family, said Luo Li with enthusiasm, knight. Bing Jixie glanced at him and said, that's a very expensive profession. Luo Dao said, yes, my family is a small aristocrat in the empire. My parents have saved money for several years and have already saved me a set of armor. As long as my body stops growing, my father will ask a familiar alchemist to make a better set of magic armor for me. Although magic armor and armor are expensive, they are a long-term choice. Bing Jixie lowered her head and asked, we've walked a long way, haven't we arrived yet? We're almost there, right ahead. Luo smiled and said, if you need to order equipment in the future, let me know. That alchemist is a good friend of my father and can offer a lot of discounts. You know that dealing with merchants like blacksmiths and alchemists without bargaining is not enough. Finding my father's friend can save you some money. Thank you, you're really enthusiastic, Bing Jixie said lightly. The two of them arrived at several rows of inconspicuous wooden houses, surrounded by many people, almost all of whom were teenagers of the same age as Bing Jixie and Luo. Luo Dao said, here we are. This is the place for the initial test, which is one of the testing points for Kurantine. If you can pass, you can participate in the interview in 5 days. Only if you pass the interview can you become Kurantine, this great academy in the world. The first row of wooden houses is for the magician's test, and you need to work hard. The initial test is very easy. Then I'll leave. Bing Jixie nodded and didn't have much affection for the person who helped him, walking towards the crowd. There are many rooms in the first row of wooden houses, and Bing Jixie looks left and right. No matter which door, there are many people gathered around. Some are waiting for friends after testing, while others are queuing up. It seems that in order to have a preliminary test, one still needs to queue up. At this moment, someone suddenly patted his shoulder. Bing Jixie turned around and saw Luo. Why are you back again? Is there anything else? Luo said, I see you're alone without any friends, so I came to accompany you. Oh, that's right. Bing Jixie thought for a moment and felt like she should say something. Thank you, I'm sorry to take up your time. It's okay, Luo said. The room here is for testing different types of magic. If you like or are best at which one, you can enter which room. After the test, the examiner will roughly record it, and after passing the interview, your expertise will be recorded in more detail. In the future, when you study, you will make arrangements based on your situation. It's like this, Bing Jixie responded and remained silent for a while. Luo looked at Bing Jixie and said, you don't seem to be very talkative, is it because you're too nervous? You don't have to be nervous, the initial test is very simple. Bing Jixie apologized and said, I'm sorry, my personality is like this. Luo smiled and said, it's okay. Have you chosen which room you want to enter? Bing Jixie looked at them one by one and said, no matter which room you enter, don't you have to queue up? Luo Dao said, queuing is very boring, and it was the same when I came here 2 years ago. If you find it boring, you can take a look around here and discover many small secrets. Oh. Bing Jixie always looks like you can do whatever you say, nods, and looks around. Kurantine College has many flower beds, which decorate the college very peacefully and beautifully. There seem to be a lot of things flying around in the flower bed. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be small fairies dancing in the sky. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that those were all magical scenes. He saw an entrance on the ground next to the flower bed, indicating that below was the hub for observing the magical changes. Luo Jianlan saw the entrance and said, "Do you know what's down there?" Bing Jixie looked at him in confusion and said, "Isn't it a magic formation?" "Yes, but it's not just that," Luo laughed. "Then there's still a small shop down there." "Oh, it's like this." Bing Jixie looked at it and sure enough, a few people walked out from below, holding ice cream with a smile. Luo said, "The weather is very hot now. Please wait here for a while, and I will buy 2 ice drinks while we eat and wait. How about this?" "I'll go with you." Bing Jixie didn't want to keep bothering him. "It should be me thanking you." As soon as they entered the ground, they immediately felt much cooler. The underground is quite large, but there are already many people standing here to avoid the heat and cool off. There is a large ice cube supported by a magical formation among the crowd, and a few people occasionally stick their hands on it and put it on their faces to relieve the heat on their bodies. Luo walked up to the shop and asked, "Hey, it's been a long time since Dorje last saw you. Do you have any delicious ice drinks?" The girl named Dole was busy handing over ice cream to a client while saying, "Luo, how did you come here? The boss knows that we are recruiting new students recently and has already made new styles of ice cream and cones. She is planning to make a big profit by taking this opportunity. This time she made it called Ice and Snow World, and I tasted it very delicious." "Okay, give me 2 copies. Duoer said, "Wait a moment. Today's sales are really good. The boss has already gone to the freezer to pick up the goods, so he should be here soon." Duoer finally finished his work and leaned against the counter, looking at the young man wearing a tattered magic hat next to Luo. "He's a little wizard, is he your friend?" Luo said, "Yes, it's a friend I just met. He came to register for the exam today and his name is Bing Jixie." "Hello lady, my name is Celeste Bingshixie said politely as she took off her hat. "Wow, you're such a handsome young boy." Dal, like Luo, was enthusiastic and couldn't help but touch his icy white hair. "If you don't mind, I'll just call your name. If you become a student of Kurantine, I'll be your senior." Luo looked at the people chatting around and said to Dole, "Sister Dole, if you help the school with temporary work this time, you will definitely get a lot of money. Don't forget to treat yourself then." "Okay," Dole laughed and said, "Which time did I not invite you to collect the money?" Dole picked up 2 stools for them and started chatting. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Mysterious Ice Child Evil. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Mysterious Ice Child Evil. After finishing the ice cream, we started queuing up again. After queuing for a long time, Bing Jixie finally entered a room. The room is very rudimentary with no decorations, only a table and a chair. There is also a formation in the middle of the room, and there is a gray magic doll in the formation, which is a commonly used item for testing. Magic dolls are made of exquisite special magical materials and are extremely sensitive to magical energy. When attacked by magic of different intensities, they will transform into different colors. The magic circle under the magic doll is designed to protect the doll from being damaged. A teacher sat in a chair, looking at the registration forms one by one, and without looking up, said, "Hand in your forms." Bing Jixie submitted the completed form. The teacher glanced at him for a moment before turning his head and saying, "If you want to become a wizard, what kind of magic do you know now? Teacher, do you want to test it?" Bing Jixie raised her head with a childish expression, reciting a spell in her mouth. A magical light ball gradually gathered in her right palm, and as she raised her hand, the light ball hit the magic doll directly. After a flash of light, only the gray part of the doll that was hit turned slightly red. Directly using magical energy to attack, although it cannot be considered true magic. The teacher walked up to the puppet and looked at it. But the intensity is still good. Don't you know some elemental magic, such as some simple basic magic? Bing Jixie lifted her head and said, "Teacher, are you taking the exam now? I thought you would be very busy today." The teacher laughed heartily and said, "Okay, you passed the test." The teacher signed a letter on his form, handed it back to him, and said with a smile, "You can go back and take the exam in 5 days. This is the real exam, and if you can't pass, the college won't admit you." "Got it, thank you, teacher." Bing Jixie bent over at him and took the form out of the cabin, followed by another person in line. Luo had been waiting outside for a long time, and when he came out, he approached and asked, "How was the exam?" "I must have passed it." Bing Jixie nodded. "This kind of exam can be passed by even a child." Luobian walked and said, "The test here is just a formality, usually passed. What's difficult is the actual exam a few days later, where the vast majority of students are eliminated." "Oh," Bing Jixie just gave a faint response. Luo smiled bitterly and said, "Hey, aren't you in a hurry about the exam the day after tomorrow when I say that? Are you really so confident, or is it just okay?" "Oh, no, I'm sorry." Bingji said, "I'm not indifferent. I really care about the exam in a few days." "Really, why didn't I see it?" Luo scratched his head with his little finger, unable to see the person in front of him showing any concern, or did he say that he had absolute confidence in passing the exam? He said, "I feel that you are somewhat similar to those few people." Bing Jixie looked at him puzzled. Luanu pouted, and before Bing Jixie could turn her head to look, she felt that the people around her who had been noisy and passing by had become even more noisy. "Speaking of which, I think you are quite similar to him, both in terms of appearance and personality. There seems to be some coldness." Luo looked at the person walking ahead. Bing Jixie also saw the person he was talking about. With snow-white hair and blood-red eyes, he was looked at by so many people around him, but there was no expression on his face, making him look very cold. "Who is this person?" Bing Jixie was quite curious. Luo Dao said, "He is the legitimate eldest grandson of the Kristen family, Kristen Baimoy, former surname and later name. He is widely recognized as a genius in the Imperial capital. Even the king has said that having a son like this in the Kristen family will surely prosper." Bing Jixie nodded secretly, unable to help but pay more attention. Suddenly, several people rushed to his side, paying attention to Kristen Baimoy. He noticed that one of them was a blonde girl who had been shouting in the hotel hallway last night. A boy next to the blonde girl said, "Has he also come to the academy? I thought that a nobleman like him would go to the Royal Inner School for further studies and wait for his hereditary title." The boy chuckled disdainfully and said, "What kind of nobles? They are just some Wangu children who are just waiting to die with their titles. When it comes to force and magic, they are just some empty pockets. As long as he doesn't provoke us, I will beat him up like I did to Ella." Another blue-eyed girl said, "Don't mess around. The Kristen family is one of the top nobles in the empire. We are here to learn. You troublemaker, don't cause trouble." The blue-eyed girl glanced at him and said, "I thought it would be better for you to come to the capital. I didn't expect you to hate the rich and the noble. Don't let my sisters drop out of school with you again." "I don't have it." The boy was a bit angry. "It was those wealthy and influential children who bullied me, so I started hitting people. Don't mistreat me." The blue-eyed girl smiled and said, "Just kidding, why are you so grand? Is it because I say bad things about you in front of Cornelia and you get angry?" All right, alright, 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 alright. Bing Jixie and Luo had already arrived at the entrance of the college. Bing Jixie turned around and said again, "Thank you for your help. You will have good luck." Luo smiled and said, "Don't be so polite, goodbye." He then turned around and left. Returned to the hotel and reopened the room. It was the same as before. Bing Jixie was idle and bored, and began to set up a magic formation. For magic formations, the most difficult thing is not to learn those profound and powerful formations, but to create new magic formations. Creating a new magic or magic formation requires not only a smart mind and profound magical skills, but also profound knowledge, persistence, and persistence. Even creating a small magic formation can sometimes be even more difficult than learning a great formation. The Ice Child Evil has been sitting on the wooden floor for a long time. He drew a pattern of a magic circle in his notebook with a pen, and the edges of the pattern were already densely written with words. He looked at the picture and thought for a long time, then made some slight changes to it, and then put down his notebook to start the experiment on the floor. Bing Jixie used her magic to draw a small formation next to her, which was a non-equilateral octagonal star with magic symbols drawn around each corner and line. He placed 2 magic crystals at the center and 2 corners of the formation, and sprinkled some powder in other places. Then a very thin and sharp piece of ice condensed from the fingertip of the right hand, cutting through the thumb and ring finger of the left hand. The severed finger activated the aggregation of ice elements and dripped 3 drops of blood in sequence onto the magic crystal in the middle. Because of the mixture of ice elements, blood turned white when it dripped down. Blood dripped onto the crystal, and suddenly a strange light appeared, emitting a faint white light. Ice Jixie quickly gathered her magic power in her right hand and pressed it in the middle of the formation. Her 5 fingers either pressed at the corners or at the edges of the formation. The array immediately shone brightly, and a cold white mist rose from within. But only 5 corners of the octagon emitted magic, and there were still 3 corners that showed no response. The light disappeared in just an instant, and the chill disappeared without a trace. However, the several crystals in the formation had exhausted their energy and turned into gray carbon, and the powder had also turned into dust. Bing Jixie didn't seem very disappointed, just let out a sigh and then looked at 2 to meditate. "I have tested multiple times in this way, and I don't know how many drawings have been modified. In the end, I still can't succeed overnight." Unconsciously, the sky had already darkened. Bing Jixie stood in front of the window, looking at the bustling traffic outside, feeling a bit flustered. He seemed to have little interest in the magnificence and elegance, grandeur of this city. "Perhaps tomorrow I should find something to do for myself," he said after resting in bed for a while. Bing Jixie stretched lazily and walked out of the room, calling for room service to clean the room. She then went to the basement of the hotel to have some food on her own. This underground wine hall is quite large, but now it is almost filled with guests, mostly young people who are applying to Kurantine College. "Look at you, Nelia. I told you to come down early, but we don't have a seat now," Elena complained. Cornelia apologized and said, "I'm sorry, I've read too much. I'm sure it won't happen again next time." "There's a vacant seat over there," Wayne pointed to it and said, "he should also be here for the exam. Let's go over and ask him to sit together. We can also sit together and chat." Both girls agreed. "Hello, can we sit here?" Because there are no more available seats, Wayne came to Bing Jixie's table and rubbed his nose, chuckling. Bing Jixie glanced at the 3 of them, intending to refuse, but still agreed. "Sure, please sit down." After finishing, he lowered his head and slowly ate his own food. Thank you, thank you." The 3 of them sat down separately. The table chosen by Bing Jixie is not very large, and it seems a bit crowded after sitting with 4 people. After the 3 of them ordered the dishes, Irina looked at the boy who had them sit down and asked, "Are you a local?" Bing Jixie stopped eating and looked up, saying, "No, it's not." "Are you also the student who came to apply this time?" Wayne asked this time. "Yes." Bing Jixie didn't say much, he just said whatever others asked. Wayne extended his hand and said, "My name is Kate Wayne, and they are my friends. We are all here to apply for Kurantine." "Hello, my name is Bevelina. Isabel Cornelia." Bing Jixie pushed a hat that didn't fit his head size and said, "Celeste Bing Jixie, nice to meet you." He said happily, but there was no smile on his face. After thinking for a moment, he looked up and asked, "Isabel? Is it Sherman's Isabel?" "Yes," but Nilia was not surprised when he named her family. "It's a very prestigious family," Bing Jixie smiled slightly, as if recalling something from before. It was already late, and they might have been hungry and didn't talk much to Bing Jixie anymore. As soon as dinner came, they each took care of their own food and ate it. Because there were strangers present, both ladies ate very politely, especially the noble lady surnamed Isabel. But what is very incongruous is the one named Kate, who wolfs down his food. Even if he eats a lot, he eats the fastest. Bing Jixie was eating the fruit salad without any dissatisfaction, and didn't pay attention to them. He was only focused on dealing with the plate of food in front of him, as if nothing made him care more than what was in front of him. Wayne took a big sip of juice and wiped the oil stains on the grilled meat burning on his mouth before chatting with Bing Jixie. "Look at your gray waist-tied short robe, are you a novice wizard?" There are many types of clothes or robes worn by magicians on the mainland, but gray is usually worn by novice magicians. Bing Jixie looked up at him and smiled, without saying yes or no. Wayne waved his arm and said, "I'm a warrior. Ah. When I'm full, I want to have a fight with someone. I heard that Kurantine has very high requirements for practical combat. Do you want to find a place to compete with me?" "Wayne. Don't do this every time, it would be impolite." Irina angrily accused her companion and gave a bitter smile to Bing's Hixie. "Don't mind, he's an idiot." "You're the idiot," Wayne casually replied, ignoring Irina's words. Their relationship was obviously very good. Vaughn looked at the naked muscles of his arm, pinched it, and waved it again. It was a bit like showing off, and then said to Bingji, "Celeste, you are too thin to be a real soldier. Without a strong physique and gorgeous fighting skills on the battlefield, it is easy to become someone's dim sum, especially like your magicians." "If Wayne. Don't say such impolite words, how could you say that when we first meet?" This time, it wasn't Elena speaking, but Cornelia. Wayne seemed to be quite afraid of this girl, so he immediately stopped his impolite behavior and smiled at Bing Jixie. "I'm sorry, don't mind, I always speak without any restraint." Bing Jixie secretly glanced at the 3 of them and stood up, saying, "I've already eaten, you guys take your time." After saying that, she called the waiter to settle the bill and leave. Irina said, "Wayne, your personality is making others unhappy." Wayne chuckled and shouted, "Waiter, another plate of beef." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Killing in the Night. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Killing in the Night. Bing Jixie went upstairs, brought a cup of iced coffee, and was about to return to her room to take a good look at the night view of the Imperial capital when she heard someone whispering at the corner of the corridor. This time, Kurantine College is recruiting students, and many wealthy families' children have come from all over the country. With 1 or 2 votes, we are sure to make a lot of money. He he he. I think so too. Do you have a goal? Just now in the restaurant below, I heard a girl calling herself Isabel. The Isabel from Sherman Province. The previous person smiled and said, "Which famous Isabel is there in the Magic Moon Empire?" "Are you sure?" She said it herself. I just went to the front desk to inquire, and they moved in with 3 people. A little girl named Isabel lived alone in a room without any family accompanying her. How did you get this information? Money can always be asked. I think this vote is enough for the 3 of us to make a big fortune. The 3 of them muttered for a while before coming out of the corner with an excited expression on their faces. Bing Jixie opened the door to her room with the key, and the 3 of them passed by without suspecting that their conversation had been overheard by the white-haired little boy who opened the door. In fact, their voices are very quiet and difficult for ordinary people to hear. When Bing Jixie closed the door, she glanced at the faces of these 3 people, and one of them felt a bit familiar. He covered the door, took out his small bag placed under the bed, and dug out several Mercenary Guild task lists from inside. The name on 1B.level task list fell into his eyes, accompanied by a blurry portrait. He put back the other task lists, leaving behind the bounty list for the kidnapper. A smile appeared on his lips. It seems I have something to do. At night, all the guests in the hotel fell asleep, except for the front desk aisle where the lights were still on. The overnight receptionist slept on a sofa that usually served guests, covered in a thin blanket, and was already sound asleep. In front of the window, the curtains were half closed, and the quiet moonlight poured in from outside, shining on the white blanket next to the windowsill. Cornelia slept soundly, her delicate young nose leaning on one side, breathing lightly. At this moment, a black figure swept past the curtains. This person, dressed in a light gray outfit, hung upside down on the red brick wall outside the hotel. He leaned into Cornelia's window, but he didn't easily take action. He knew that there would be simple yet invisible magic circles on the windowsills of hotels, just to prevent people like him from breaking in from outside. The gray-clothed man took out a magic stone pen and spent half an hour drawing a larger magic formation around the entire window. His hand pressed against the formation, and the magic worked. A palm-sized invisible small formation on the windowsill shone brightly, revealing itself. The man in light gray clothes smiled smugly and said, "I knew these small hotels always slack off. It's too easy to make this simple magic circle ineffective." He made some moves on the formation, and with a shout, the small magic formation on the windowsill ignited a small blue flame that quickly extinguished, leaving only a burst of green smoke and a round of black magic marks remaining on the windowsill. He gestured to the person watching the wind below. There are 2 people watching the wind below. One is standing at the intersection of the street to prevent patrolling security officers from coming, while the other is guarding the hotel entrance under the window to meet them. The receptionist saw that the companion's task had been completed, took 2 empty steps, jumped onto the windowsill, and created a small summoning magic array in his hand, summoning a ball of plants the size of hemp threads in his palm. This group of plants is called stealing fish algae, which parasitizes on aquatic products such as fish and shrimp at the edge of the pond, slowly eroding the host for a living. This type of plant-like warcraft is usually the most hated creature by fish farmers, but it is the favorite guardian warcraft of thieves. With it, it can easily sneak through and open windows. The stealing fish algae lay on the windowsill, and the filamentous seaweed leaves on their bodies crawled into the gaps of the window. They gently wrapped around the window bolt from inside and pulled it, making a soft clicking sound as the window opened. The slight sound coming from behind her ears did not startle the familiar Cornelia, but when someone stood in front of her bed, she still felt it. She opened her eyes and saw a black shadow blocking her eyes. She was startled and was about to get up to take a closer look. A powerful hand wrapped in a handkerchief had already covered her mouth. She struggled hard for a while, and a pungent smell rushed from her nose. She quickly lost consciousness and passed out in a coma. The 2 of them succeeded and showed a knowing smile. The 2 of them carried Cornelia out of the window, one holding a meat ticket, and the other calling on her accomplice to evacuate quickly. Balin shuttled through the pitch-black and quiet alleys, with the red-nosed deer hound ahead leading his way, searching for an unguarded route to leave. He was very excited, knowing that the ticket tied up tonight was enough to make him comfortable for the rest of his life. Sherman's Isabel was a well-known local family, and if this girl were really a member of the Isabel family, even if she was not a direct relative, she would definitely be able to get a substantial ransom. He has now begun to fantasize that, if nothing unexpected happens, he will buy a luxurious house by the seaside, eat the most delicious seafood, drink the most beautiful wine, and live his retirement life comfortably. You can even change to different beauties every day and enjoy life that you have never enjoyed before in the first half of your life. No, I could have enjoyed this kind of life long ago. If it weren't for my previous partner and that watch taking away all the money, I wouldn't have fallen into the trap of working hard for the rest of my life. Balin has been resentful of his previous partner, and even swore that if he sees that dog man and woman again, he will personally twist their necks. But he didn't think so now. With this vote, the daughter of the Isabel family, he could recover what he had lost, perhaps even more. He was even a bit grateful to the dog man and woman. If it weren't for them taking away his money, he wouldn't have come to the end of the Devil's Moon and wouldn't want to come here to make a big profit. He didn't know why Isabel's daughter stayed in such a small hotel, and he didn't need to know either. He only needs to know that after this vote, he will start a brand new life. Suddenly, the red-nosed deer hunting dog running ahead started barking, and Barren frowned displeasedly. The guard dog he raised has been with him for 6 years. Not only is it very intelligent and has very keen senses, but it never barks randomly. Even if it encounters guards on the way out, it will quietly retreat and find new detours. Red Nose, what are you doing? Barren scolded lightly and stopped in place with his 2 partners without catching up. After a while, the red-nosed deer retriever stopped barking, and the 2 partners were a bit nervous. They didn't see the red-nosed deer retriever retreat. Go to the room, Barren suggested. He grabbed Cornelia and jumped onto the roof in 3 or 2 steps. However, as soon as he landed, he noticed a young man with white hair standing on another roof more than 10 meters away under the moonlight. Balin was taken aback for a moment. He had seen the young man twice in the restaurant and hallway of that hotel, and his heart trembled. Did he have been staring at me for a long time? Balin thought to himself, and a hint of anger and surprise surged in his heart. He was surprised that the young man could stop him, and also angry that the young man dared to stop him. When the 2 partners jumped onto the roof, they were also frightened by this scene and looked at each other. Leave the people behind, I can consider giving you a way out. Bing Jixie watched them quietly, his old magic robe swaying in the wind, but his expression did not show any ripples. Balin was angry, really angry. He had traveled to the mainland for so many years and had seen everything before. Never before had a little ghost dared to say such things in front of him. He traveled safely across the mainland for decades with a pair of iron fists, and practiced his rock-breaking fist for 23 years. Even a 3-story building could collapse in half with a single punch. Even if it's a colleague or a more powerful expert than him, he still needs to be polite in front of his fists. Kid, you're looking for death. This sentence was squeezed out of Barren's teeth and he waved, up, don't leave any alive. The 3 of them ran quickly towards the white-haired little ghost on the opposite side, stepping on the edge of the eaves and rushing towards the opposite roof. However, at this moment, Balin noticed that the little ghost in front of him suddenly disappeared, and then a cold voice came from his ear. Death. Hee hee. Have you ever heard the sound of death? Bing Jixie lightly stepped on Balin's left shoulder with 1 foot, her eyes fixed on the other 2 kidnappers rushing towards her from behind, and a strange smile rose on her lips. The 3 of them were instantly shocked. They couldn't see clearly when the young man in front of them had moved, and Balin didn't even feel when the other person's foot was stepping on his shoulder. The shock had not yet ended when Balin suddenly felt a slight chill on his neck, followed by a warm surge. In the next scene, he saw the mist of blood spurting out from his neck. The man in light gray clothes was so frightened that he couldn't breathe. He didn't know what kind of monster the boy in front of him was, but the blood spurting out of Barren's neck and the sight of the girl falling from Barren's hand made him immediately realize. The white-haired boy in front of me is really here to kill them. He quickly pulled out the short knife inserted in his waist and cut towards the boy 1.5 meters away. His speed in drawing his knife has always been praised, and he has always been confident in his own speed. He is confident that in the next 0.3 seconds, one of the young man's arms will be cut in half by his knife. At such a close distance, he has never missed a shot. But unexpectedly, his confident knife was missed. Just as he thought his sharp fingers would feel the pressure from the handle, the boy in front of him disappeared. Like the previous time, he didn't see how the boy disappeared, nor did he see the marks left by the young movement of his white hair. Quickly, he realized that his palm holding the knife was numb. He watched as his swinging arm crossed a parabolic curve, and his palm flew out of his wrist. He opened his mouth in fear, and a shout was about to erupt from his throat. In the next moment, he heard cold words coming from his ear. "This is the last movement you hear in life, the overture to death." The gray-clothed man's eyes rolled as he saw an old boot with mud on its edge, an old gray robe, and the side cheeks of the young man. The ice blade in Bing Jixie's hand gently brushed over, and he didn't even look at the person's face, because he knew that the person was already dead and there was no accident. The remaining pockmarked man was frightened and lost his center of gravity in the air. He collided with the wall of the opposite house and fell into the alley. When he fell to the ground and suffered pain, his eyes saw a pair of feet lightly landing on the ground 2 meters away. The white-haired boy in front of him not only fell to the ground with him, but also caught the girl who had slipped from Balan's hand. "Let me go, please let me go. I'm not the mastermind, this matter has nothing to do with me," the pockmarked man exclaimed in fear, realizing that he could never be a match for this young man. Bing Jixie tilted her head slightly and looked at the man pleading on the ground without any emotion. "Opportunity, only once. You have already lost it." A blush of blood was the last sight that the pockmarked man saw when he closed his eyes. "The 3 kidnappers have all fallen to the ground, but they haven't died, they just passed out." Ice childishness sealed their wounds and dragged the first culprit, Balan, away holding Cornelia. Returning to the hotel, Bing Jixie gently placed Cornelia on the bed and stood in front of the windowsill, looking down at the girl. He is not someone who does not seek anything in return, but the reward he just received from the Mercenary Union is already enough. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Imperial Dragon Wing. Kristen family, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Imperial Dragon Wings. Christian family. The metropolis shrouded in darkness is illuminated by colorful spots of light. Even at night, the light of the imperial capital will not dim, and it seems that the light will always fill this city. Under the colorful streetlights, a light blue carriage passed by, immediately catching the attention of some people who were enjoying their nightlife and preparing to go home or drive. There was a dragon wing emblem on the carriage, which was the emblem of the Kristen family. The carriage walked slowly and finally disappeared into a noble exclusive teleportation array. In the northwest city of Thebes, the carriage is parked outside a mansion. A muscular man in his 50s and 60s got off the car, accompanied by 2 guards. This man is one of the 5 major families in the imperial capital, and the current duke of the Kristen family, Kristen Xavier. Entering the mansion, the man took off the red cloak on his shoulder and handed it to the guard. "Father, why did you come back so late? What's up in the palace?" A middle-aged man walked out of the living room. Xiafaluo was a bit surprised by the appearance of the middle-aged man in front of him. "Harold, how could you be here?" After the father and son hugged each other, Hannard said, "I just came over from the fiefdom today and heard that Baimoy is going to study at Kurantine. I thought he would go to the Royal Academy for further studies, so I came to take a look." Shavaro smiled and said, "Don't look at this child who doesn't usually talk, but he's as stubborn as your brother in his heart. What he wants to do can't be changed by anyone else. He can study at Kurantine just like entering a royal inner school, but I don't know what he's thinking." He insists on going to Kurantine Academy and even demands to live on campus in the future. Ha ha ha. This kid has always been silent and quiet, and no one really knows what he's thinking. Hannard said again, I heard that my brother is pretty good on the front line. There has been some friction between the Empire and St. Pycia recently, so I should ask him to be more careful. Said Xavier, I have already written to your brother. He will be careful. Why, is Baimoy sleeping? How could that be? He was practicing martial arts and magic in the yard, and just now he had a fight with me, said Hannard with a smile. Xiafluo also smiled and said, as soon as you come, he is happy. He is closest to you, and he and my grandfather can't say a word in a day. Father is also too busy. Recently, there has been a tense diplomatic relationship with St. Pycia, and you can't come back. Hannard accompanied his father, Xavier, to the yard while speaking, watching Baimoy's practice. Under the moonlight, wielding a steel gun, every sweep and thrust emitted a silver light, and the enchanting magic flickered incessantly in the courtyard, with a speed that was overwhelming. Baimoy is really getting stronger and stronger. When I was his age, I didn't have his skills, said Hannard. Charlotte said, our Kristen family has the bloodline of Tagwin, and our red eyes determine that each of us is a genius. And Baimoy is one of the geniuses in our family, whether we can bring back the glory of our ancestors depends on him. Tagwin. It is said that he was born to the Aurora god Haphroditus and the Dragon clan, and is a divine beast that intimidates the abyss. Of course, this is just a legend. Kristen Tagwin created the most glorious period of the Kristen family and also created the current Kristen family, who are revered as ancestors by future generations. Hannah looked at Baimoy in the courtyard and asked again, Father, why did you come back so late today? Is there something happening in the palace? Well, there's something going on, said Xiafluo. The crown prince is already 18 years old, and His Majesty wants him to go to the front line to experience. But His Highness wants to go to the Warcraft Forest in Mutlu province to experience it, and he plans to leave with the crowd in a few days. We've been discussing the issue of the Crown Prince's protection today, and you happen to be here. I think you'll also accompany us to protect the Crown Prince. Let's listen to my father's arrangements, said Hannard with a smile. Xiafluo turned his head to look at his son and placed his hand on his shoulder, sighing, you are also 30 years old and haven't married a wife yet. Your Majesty's 7th princess has always been interested in you, and your Majesty is also interested in this marriage. She will accompany him this time, and I hope you take good care of him. After a moment of thought, Hannard said, listen to my father's arrangements. The next morning, it was just dawn. In a luxurious bedroom of the Kristen family, Baimoy slept in a very formal position on the bed, lying straight without appearing stiff. On the silver soft seat, in addition to this young man, suddenly there was an additional cat. Baimoy opened his eyes and immediately saw two people standing by the bed, Ursula and Celt. These two individuals are both grandchildren from the 5 major families in the Imperial capital, and like Baimoy, they will both be the eldest grandchildren of hereditary titles in the future. These 3 people of the same age have always been known as the 3 genius youths of the Imperial capital. Celt smiled and said, you lazy devil, we're all up, and you're still sleeping in bed. Baimoy sat up, looked at them expressionlessly, picked up the chubby cat and threw it out of bed. He ignored them and fell asleep again. He dares to sleep. Celt seemed a bit angry. Ursula hugged her chest with both hands and chuckled softly in front of her, the cat you threw made him angry. Even though you knew he would get angry, you still did it. Celt snapped his fingers, ignited flames, and smiled, what, is he angry? Urxiu said, do you dare to burn his bed? I don't think you have the courage. Who said I dare not? Celt said as the flames on his fingertips turned into a fireball about to burst out. Just as Ursula was about to watch the good play, Baimoy suddenly sat up and slowly turned his head to coldly look at Celt. The fireball that flew into mid-air suddenly came to a stop, and Celt chuckled twice. I didn't want to do anything. I've been feeling that this fireball has become more and more fun lately, don't you think, Ursula? The fireball disappeared from his palm. Ursula burst into laughter and pointed at him. Celt, I knew you were afraid of him. Baimoy didn't say anything and walked out of bed calmly, putting on his clothes. After washing up, he asked, what are you doing here? Ursula rested her hands on the back of her head and said, you're not interesting enough. I heard you signed up for Kurantine College and didn't tell us. Celt also said, yes, they haven't come to see us these days, and Kurantine hasn't told us about the registration, which almost caused us to plan to enter the Royal Academy. Baimoy drank a glass of fresh milk and looked at them inquiring. Celt smiled and said, we have also signed up for Kurantine, and we will study together in the future. It's perfect for the three of us to have a good competition. Ursula took a bite of a fruit and asked, I don't understand why you have to directly apply to Kurantine College. Isn't it possible to study at Kurantine just like going to the Royal Academy? Baimoy ignored him and continued to eat the breakfast prepared by the servants. You really are, this guy. Urxiu sneered helplessly at him without saying the reason. Celt said, Your Highness the Crown Prince is going to the Forest of Warcraft. My father originally asked me to go with him, but I refused. Ursula said, I have always wanted to go to the Warcraft Forest, which is considered one of the top 10 dangerous places on the continent. My father also had the idea for me to go, but I don't like being with so many people. It's not exciting when there are too many people. Celt sneered and said, It seems we're really friends. We thought of going together. Baimoy remained deaf to their words, as if he were the only one at all. Celt and Ursula glanced at Baimoy, sighed in their hearts, and shook their heads. Celt thought for a moment and then said, I heard that Kurantine was a thief the other day. Ursula said, What's there to say? With so many people living in schools, it's normal for thieves to steal things. No, Celt said, the thief stole something extraordinary. He stole it inside the blue crystal tower. As soon as he said this, Ursula was taken aback, and even Baimoy looked at him and sounded it seriously. Ursula said, Who did you hear? Why haven't I heard of it? It's not just a rumor, is it? Celt snorted, It's not a rumor, I overheard my father's conversation yesterday. Oh. It seems like something happened. Ursula thought for a moment, but didn't say anything, just asked, So what did you steal? Celt said, I didn't steal anything, I was driven away by the Dean of Kurantine. Did you drive away? Didn't you catch the thief? Ursula pondered and said, There is a magical barrier protection outside the blue crystal tower. This barrier formation is owned by the great magician Vasilibu. There are also guards inside the barrier. Those who can pass these 2 levels must be magicians or those who are very proficient in space magic and magic formations. Only those who are extremely skilled or dragon knights can forcibly break the barrier. Celt shook his head and said, If we forcefully break the barrier, I'm afraid the entire people of Kurantine will immediately know. But in fact, the thief quietly sneaked into the blue crystal tower. I heard that the dean felt the change in the barrier before checking, and then discovered the thief. The dean also fought with that person, but it only took 2 moves before that person ran away. Ursula's face had to change color again, and it was not surprising that she could safely escape with just 2 moves under the dean of one of the world's largest colleges. Ursula asked, Did the dean see that person's appearance? Celt said, I don't know. When I heard this, my father found out and drove me away, but maybe I didn't see it, otherwise the whole city would have been wanted. Arira nodded and said, That's right. Celt saw Baimoy finish breakfast and stood up, asking, Where are we going to play? When Cornelia woke up with a splitting headache, she propped herself up from the bed, feeling as if something had happened last night. Upon careful consideration, she remembered that someone appeared at her bedside in the middle of the night trying to harm her. She was startled and quickly hugged her body to take a look, only to find that she didn't seem to have anything unusual. She was stunned and said, Am I dreaming? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Mercenary System. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7. Mercenary System. Dudu. Bing Jixie was meditating on the formation inside the room when suddenly he heard someone knocking on the door. Bing Jixie quickly erased the picture on the ground, put away her notebook, and opened the door. It turned out to be Isabel Cornelia. He thought that Cornelia came because of last night's incident, but seeing her innocent smile on her face, it seemed that she wasn't, so he asked, "What's up?" Cornelia smiled sweetly and said, "Do you have time, Sylvester? We would like to ask for your help." Cornelia was slightly taller than Bing's Hixie, so Bing's Hixie lifted the brim of her hat before looking at her and asking, "What's up?" "We have received a task from the Mercenary Union to help a knight repair his armor. Although all three of us have some magic, it is still better to have a magician. Because we are worried about damaging the armor, we would like to ask for your help. If it is repaired, the reward is 15 gold coins, and you can receive half of the money. Give me 15 gold coins and 7 gold coins are a considerable sum of money for an average person, enough to stay and eat in such a tavern for 10 days. But Bing Jixie didn't care about the amount of money. He understood why the other party was willing to give him so much as 7. One reason is that they have money, and the other reason is that their goal is not money, but work division. The Mercenary Union is a global coalition organization, and the mercenary system is very popular in mainland China and is widely promoted in various countries. Because there are two biggest benefits, namely, it can enhance the skills and combat capabilities of the entire population, and it can also solve the problem of population unemployment, which is important for the economic development of the nation. Under the mercenary system, there are two units, one is a mercenary and the other is a mercenary team. As an independent individual, you can join the mercenary system to become an independent mercenary, and you can also build a mercenary team of 5 or more people. Mercenaries can receive 3 types of rewards when accepting tasks, namely work point rewards, property rewards, and reputation rewards, which are respectively provided by mercenary unions, task commissioning parties, and national and legal union groups. Each mercenary regiment and mercenary is established on a hierarchical system, and different levels can accept task commissions at different levels. The task level is comprehensively evaluated by the difficulty of the task and the reward amount of the task. Each mercenary unit is divided into 7 levels. S, A, B, C, D, E, and F, while commission tasks are divided into 10 levels. SSS, SS, S, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The level promotion of mercenaries or mercenary groups is accumulated by the Mercenary Union, and the conditions for accepting commission tasks are based on the current mercenary level below. That is, F-level mercenary teams can accept tasks of F and G levels, while E-level mercenaries can accept task commissions of E, F, and G levels. SS-level tasks can only be accepted by S-level mercenary individuals. Except for SSS level, the remaining 9 levels of tasks can be delegated by unions, groups, or individuals. SSS level is a national war task that can only be delegated by each country, and any level of mercenary or mercenary regiment can accept it. Tasks are divided into 2 types. General tasks and team tasks, which can be accepted by any eligible individual or team. Team tasks can only be entrusted to qualified mercenary groups, and team tasks can require team members, such as 50 or more, 100 or more. If there is no limit on the number of people, any number of mercenary teams can be accepted and can be jointly accepted by other teams. Tasks are also divided into 2 states, namely finite number tasks and infinite number tasks. A finite number of tasks limit the state in which they are accepted, such as a single task, where one mercenary and one mercenary group accept the task, while other individuals and teams are not allowed to accept it repeatedly. Unlimited tasks can be accepted by many individuals and teams simultaneously, and rewards will be received by the mercenary who completes the task first. Due to its risk, infinite tasks are generally rewarded more than twice as much as finite tasks of the same level. Tasks are also divided into 3 types: regional, national, and global. Regional tasks are entrusted by local unions, and mercenaries can only be accepted and returned by local unions. National, which means that all mercenary unions in the country can accept and return them on behalf of local trade unions. Universality refers to the acceptance and return of tasks entrusted by local trade unions to all global trade unions. When delegating tasks, the mercenary union collects 10% of the reward amount from the delegating party as a commission fee, and can delegate the task reward to the mercenary union. For national tasks, an additional commission fee of 300 to 500 gold coins will be added based on the size of the country's territory, and for global tasks, an additional commission fee of 10,000 gold coins will be charged. The commissioning party shall not revoke the task after it is accepted. After a mercenary fails to accept a task, they can still receive a reward of 3% to 5%, but will deduct the same reward points as the task and add 30%. The task rewards 100 points of work, and after failure, 133 points of work will be deducted for mercenaries and mercenary groups. No points will be deducted for unlimited number of failed tasks. When the mercenary's work score is below -100, the mercenary status shall be cancelled and no further mercenary application shall be made within 3 years. When a task fails, the financial rewards are determined through mutual consultation between the commissioning party and the commission party, generally based on monetary standards. Those who occupy the entrusted items of the task without authorization will be penalized according to the situation, and will be compensated for the entrusted party's property, that is, the entrusted items of the task are not obtained by the task. The above is the basic system, which will be discussed gradually. Bing Jixie is very familiar with the mercenary system. He has traveled to the mainland for more than 2 years and has received all his living expenses from the mercenary union. He has also taken on many tasks related to repairing items, as these tasks are relatively less complicated but the rewards are relatively abundant. Because repair is a technical job, things that can be repaired by someone in the mercenary union for 10 gold coins are often several times more expensive to go to professional repair shops. However, entrusting equipment repair tasks in mercenary unions carries much greater risks. According to the mercenary principle of no compensation for failed tasks, if a third-rate technician accepts the repair task, they will not be responsible if the item is damaged. Therefore, valuable items are generally not entrusted by mercenary unions. Bing Jixie agreed to help them. Cornelia appeared very happy and took him out of the tavern. I took the teleportation array and arrived at another community. There is an open area in this area, which is a public training ground. There will be some stone platforms, tables, and other simple and convenient repair facilities in the area. This type of training ground is a place for learners to communicate and learn from each other, which is usually found in various towns, and therefore it may attract some people to set up a challenge arena here. Due to the large number of people gathered, it is convenient for learning and communication. People with various skills will gather here, and repair is no exception. Cornelia looked around the training ground and finally found Irina, who was completely engrossed in watching matches. Cornelia pulled Irina and asked, "Why, haven't Wayne come yet to get a pair of armor?" Irina frowned and said, "I don't know what he did again." Cornelia said, "Here, show the entrusted documents to Celeste. If he helps us fix them, we'll give him half of the cost, 7 gold coins and 50 silver coins." Irina handed over the documents to Bing Jixie. Bing Jixie looked at the document and said, "Task level. E.level delegated task, task condition. Repair 1 piece of non-standard medium-sized knight armor from the Magic Moon Empire, task reward. 80 work points, 15 gold coins, task recipient. E.level mercenary Bevelena, task return location. Mercenary Union of Silver Cavalry 3rd District, Dibble City, Muyue Empire, Union Code. My 0014, task conditions detailed. Repair 1 non-standard medium-sized knight armor of the Magic Moon Empire, with an armor damage assessment of 65% to 68%, Mercenary Union, and a task completion repair rate of over 90%. Repairing a 65% damaged knight armor only pays 15 gold coins, which can only be said to be a stingy task. If repaired at a blacksmith's shop, it would cost at least 100 gold coins or more. But Irina and the others don't care, and Ice Child Evil is even less likely to care. Do you know why I asked you to help me? Cornelia looked at Bingji with a wicked smile and asked Bingji Xie return the documents to them and said, "You are outsiders, we know each other." The two girls were taken aback. Irina said, "You spoke too concisely, but you guessed it right." Cornelia said, "Well, although the money is a bit less, I'm sorry to trouble you." In no time, Wayne arrived holding a large armor. "Wayne, what did you go for? Why did you go for so long?" Irina was obviously very angry. Wayne placed the armor on the ground and wiped the sweat off his forehead, saying, "Fool, how can I fix it without repair tools?" Irina was taken aback and smiled awkwardly. She only remembered to repair her armor and earn points, but forgot that she didn't even have the necessary repair tools. Wayne was carrying a pocket on his back and put it down, which contained repair tools. Cornelia happily picked up a hammer and said, "We have the tools too. Let's start repairing." Sylvester. She looked at Ice Child Evil, who had already placed his armor on the stone platform and looked carefully. There doesn't seem to be any damage on the armor, it just doesn't have the luster that metal should have. The three of them gathered around, and Irina asked, "Isn't it just that the shoulder joint of the armor is cracked? There are many indentations on the armor, and there is also some rust. Don't you need to look so carefully, right?" Bing Jixie didn't look up at them. He touched and smelled the armor with his hand, and then said, "You've been deceived. This armor has been corroded by the acid of the Dembrian worm. Although this mother's acid is not strong, it has very strong storage ability. Even if exposed to air, a drop can be stored for more than 10 years without evaporating completely. This armor may not be visible on the surface, but you can tell by touching it with your hand." 3 people reached out to touch the armor, feeling as if they were touching a rough wall, which was very uncomfortable. Bing Jixie continued, "Countless invisible holes have been eroded on the armor, and the entire piece of armor seems to have been evenly coated by people. In terms of the degree of erosion, it has been at least a few years or more. If it were in a few more years, this armor would be a pile of scrap iron. However, now, this armor can no longer protect its owner, just with a little force." He punched the armor and made a hole. The 3 of them were startled and looked at the broken hole. Wayne felt his teeth itch with hatred and said, "Damn you, the Union is also deceiving people." Bing Jixie shook her head and said, "It's not that the Mercenary Union deliberately tried to deceive you. It's possible that the person who identified the item didn't notice it themselves. It's so despicable that even the Union members were deceived. I'll go find the client now," Wayne said angrily. "Wait a minute, Wayne." Cornelia grabbed him and said, "But I'm surprised. The acid of the Dembrian worm is a precious thing, and even 10 worms may not be able to get a drop. Because of its continuous corrosiveness and special nature, it can corrode some strengthened magical objects. No one would use this kind of thing on this ordinary armor, so how could it be coated all over the armor?" Bing Jixie lifted her head and glanced at the questioning girl, then lowered her head and said, "Do you also know about this kind of acid? By the way, Isabel is a famous nobleman, and it's not uncommon to know." Irina smiled and said, "Cornelia is an encyclopedia, and her house is filled with books." Bing Jixie said calmly, "The steel of this armor is very special. It may have been discarded from experiments conducted by people in the Imperial Laboratory or Kurantine Academy. Later, it was picked up and taken to the Union for repair. Do you think this is an experimental item?" Cornelia thought for a moment and said, "No way, even if we do experiments, we don't need to cover the entire armor. It's such a waste. Bing Jixie shook her head and said, a good armor must have a lot of materials to use. Different parts of an armor will be made with different materials, formulas, and smelting methods. Because different parts and components will have different uses, I think you should be aware of this. Wayne nodded and said, yes, the body parts of armor have requirements for toughness, the arms have requirements for hardness, and the joints have particularly high requirements for rust and corrosion, especially the shoulder joints. More than half of the money for a good piece of armor will be spent on joint production because once the joints rust, the armor cannot fight. The experiments on armor are not just about these, such as the anti-attack effect at different degrees of corrosion, so they will apply acid all over their body, Bing Jixie said in great detail. Irina was amazed by Bing Jixie's knowledge and said, I can't believe you know so much. You're so smart that you can be a detective. Bing Jixie smiled and said, thank you, it's actually easy to think of. Because only by conducting experiments can acid be applied to the entire body of the armor. But what should we do now? Can this armor still be repaired? Cornelia frowned anxiously. Before Bing Jixie could answer, she heard someone talking behind her. Hey, Miss Isabel, haven't you fixed your things yet? I fixed this one myself. A person walked up not far, holding a heavy armor in their hand and smiling smugly. Wayne looked unhappy and said, our armor has been corroded by acid and it's difficult to repair. A blond curly-haired boy smiled proudly and said, of course it's difficult to fix me like you, a rascal. It would be different with my help. The blond boy looked at Cornelia and Irina, waiting for them to ask for his help. As a result, Irina only glanced at him and ignored him, while Cornelia was indecisive but seemed unwilling to ask him for help. The golden curly-haired boy was a bit embarrassed, but still refused to leave. He smiled and asked, Miss, do you want to help? Cornelia was still hesitating, but Irina suddenly said, no need, you should leave quickly, it's hindering us. That's right. Wayne rolled up his sleeves and swung his arm, Patala, do you want to punch me? The blond boy named Patala waved his hand disdainfully and said, I don't want to talk to Mangfu. I only listen to Isa. I only listen to Miss Cornelia. I think she will definitely ask me for help, right? The final question was directed towards Cornelia. Cornelia looked at her two companions and seemed very determined, so she had to apologize, no need, thank you. We have found friends who can help. This way. The blond boy looked at Bing Jixie with displeasure and walked away. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Non-standard medium knight armor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Non-standard medium knight armor. Bing Jixie paid no attention and said after they finished speaking, although this is not magic armor, in terms of corrosion, you can take the armor to the guild for further evaluation. The difficulty of the task should be even higher. Are you saying it can be repaired? Cornelia asked happily. Bing Jixie nodded lightly. 3 people are all very happy. Wayne said, but if we have to go for further appraisal, it will be very troublesome. After appraisal, we will have to discuss the remuneration with the client again, which will take a long time. Irina was very happy and said, it's okay, it's okay. The difficulty of the task has increased by 1 level, and the reward points will be several times more. As soon as she finished speaking, her expression on her face disappeared. No way. What's wrong, Irina? Wayne looked at her. Irina said with a worried face, no, my mercenary level is only E, and I'm just a little short of reaching D level. If I go to evaluate again and the mission becomes D level, I won't be able to accept it. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. But Nilia also looked helpless. Ice Child Evil Way. It's okay, there can also be mistakes in task level assessment. If the Mercenary Union finds out, they will make appropriate adjustments. If you promise to fix it, they will agree for you to continue taking over this task. Really? Irina said, but what if the client is unwilling to upgrade the task level? If the client is unwilling to pay more commission fees, then the task will be revoked. In that case, they will only receive a small amount of money and work compensation. Wayne also said, yes, the fees charged by the Mercenary Union are commission fees for taking on task levels. If the client is unwilling, then we are all in vain. Bing Jixie pushed her hat and said, you can agree to accept this task only based on the current compensation. Irina said, what's the use of that? It's better to follow the current situation and save so much trouble. Wayne shouted, idiot Irina. If the task level is increased by 1 level, the work points you can earn will be increased several times. Cornelia said, yeah, Irina, if it's a D.level task, there should be over 200 work points, right? Irina hesitated for a moment before shaking her head and saying, forget it, anyway, I'm only a little close to being promoted to a D.level mercenary. I'll have plenty of time to do D.level tasks in the future, so that's not a problem. Let's fix this thing for now. Cornelia nodded, but she didn't care about this little bit of work score. Wayne waved his big arm and smiled at Irina, you still have some conscience, otherwise I'll have to go again. Hey, skinny guy, you won't remember this little money, will you? If you feel like you're losing out, we'll give you all the labor costs. Well, good. Bing Jixie was still looking at the armor. Hello, you're too impolite, aren't you? Wayne responded directly as he saw him. I'm just casually saying it, wouldn't you be humble? 7.5 gold coins are not a small number. Bing Jixie looked up at him for a while, then lowered her head and said lightly, this is what I deserve. You kid. Wayne wanted to say something, but was stopped. Cornelia covered her mouth and smiled, all right, Wayne, he's willing to help me. A few gold coins is the reward he should receive. Don't worry about it anymore. Irina snorted and said, Jean is still a rough man. Wayne didn't want to say anything more, but when his companion said that about him, he started arguing with her again. Cornelia shook her head helplessly and squatted down, saying, that's just how they are. Don't worry. I don't know. Can this thing really be repaired? Cornelia asked. No problem. Bing Jixie didn't even glance at her, and her fingertips slightly picked up some magical elements to dot the armor. A small amount of dust emerged from the invisible hole on the armor. Bing Jixie took a sniff and said, fortunately, no other acidic substances have been added. Repairing this armor can be roughly divided into 2 steps. First, remove the acidic substances inside the armor, and then restore its metallic properties. Cornelia nodded, and the two arguing Wayne and Irina also gathered around. Irina asked, what should we do then? Bing Jixie looked up at them and remained silent for a long time. What? What's going on? Irina and the others felt a bit puzzled. What are you watching us do? Bing Jixie shook his head and said, it's nothing. He then took out a small bag of powder from his pocket and said to Wayne, please bring me a cup and a glass of water. Oh. Wayne couldn't understand why he needed cups and water to repair equipment. What's that bag of things from you? Curiously asked Bing's Hixie, powder made from Della fruit. Ice childish cult. Del Rego. Irina called out as she remembered he wanted a cup and water. Do you want a drink? Della fruit is a very common fruit that can be found throughout the continent and is often made into fruit sauces, beverages, or canned goods for sale. Bing Jixie didn't pay attention to her either. After a while, she waited for Wayne to bring a glass of water before pouring the powder into the glass and stirring it up. It looked like she wanted to drink something. Wayne looked angry and said, magical kid, what did I think you were going to do? You actually used a warrior like me to be a waiter. Did you do it on purpose? Cornelia said, forget about Wayne, he's also kind enough to help us. After mixing the powder evenly, Bing Jixie turned it into a cup of yellow-brown juice, and then he evenly applied the juice bit by bit on every part of the armor, inside and outside. Wayne then said strangely, "What are you doing?" Bing Jixie said as he painted, "Draco has an effect that can neutralize acidity. Applying it to armor will naturally eliminate the effect of Dem's acid." Cornelia clapped her hands and thought for a while before saying, "Yes, I remember. There is such a record in volume 14 of the Encyclopedia Evola. Oh, how could I not have thought it could still be used like this? I used to eat this red fruit almost every day when I was a child. I was tired of its taste, and later I found out that it can also neutralize most acidic substances." The Complete Encyclopedia of Avila, Volume 14, page 524. Draco. Irina seemed to remember and covered her forehead in pain, saying, "Who would pay attention to such a short record? Ah. So this fruit has this purpose, why didn't I know? I'll go buy more now." Wayne was as excited as if he had discovered some treasure. Irina grabbed Wayne, who was about to get up, and said, "Why are you going to buy that? 5 silver coins per kilogram, it's not a valuable treasure." Wayne was taken aback and said, "Yes. I can't stand you without a brain." Irina patted her painful forehead again. Bing Jixie was doing her own thing bit by bit. "All right. Who knows fire magic?" Cornelia said, I know a little bit. Do you need to refine it?" Bing Jixie shook her head and said, "No need, you can cover the entire armor with fire elements, which can accelerate the neutralization of acidity. This Ven warrior, I have a list for you. Can you please buy all the things you need on it?" "Why am I the deliver man again?" Wayne looked reluctant. Bing Jixie wrote all the necessary things to him, even the required portions were clearly written. After seeing it, Wayne was startled and said, 1 2 3 4 5. I need 20.1 materials, so many. Cornelia and the others were also startled and said, "Do you want so much?" Ice Child Evil Way. These things are not expensive, and they don't require much. They can be bought in ordinary material stores. Wayne said with a worried expression, "Hey, it's really troublesome." Irina tapped him on the head and said, "Don't talk so much nonsense. Do you want me and Ms. Cornelia to go buy it?" "Go ahead." Wayne originally wanted to say why Bing Jixie was also a man and why he didn't go, but when he thought that he had invited help from his side, he couldn't say anything more, so he had to leave in frustration. Cornelia and Irina followed his method and placed their hands on the armor, injecting fire elements. Soon, the temperature on the armor gradually increased and remained at a specific temperature until Wayne bought something and didn't ask them to stop. Bing Jixie took over most of the materials from Wayne, which were carbon powder, metal powder, and liquid, and prepared them on her own. Cornelia and Irina squatted stiffly there, too embarrassed to ask how long they wanted to do this, so they had to wait. Fortunately, simply gathering fire elements did not require too much magic, and the amount of magic needed was not very large, so they could still bear it. After mixing for a long time, Bing Jixie applied several bottles of liquid mixed with metal powder one by one onto the armor, and asked them to continue casting fire elements through a layer. However, he went to the side to watch the arena competition. Wayne had intended to say something, but upon reflection, it was not his own fault. He had long been attracted by the martial arts competition over there, so he managed to sneak in and watch it. Cornelia and Irina awkwardly exchanged a glance and could only crouch like this. After more than half an hour, Bing Jixie finally returned and said, "All right, you can rest now." The two girls took a breath and were about to get up when they realized that their legs were already sore and numb, and they couldn't even stand up. Wayne reluctantly squeezed out of the crowd and swung a sledgehammer, saying, "All right, you can fix it. Hurry up and fix it. I still have to go see a martial arts competition." Irina finally stood up while holding onto the stone pier, and then pulled Cornelia up. "I'm so tired, what else? What else should I do?" she asked Ice Child Evil Path. It has been repaired and you can go and hand in the task now. Hey! The three of them looked at him in surprise and said, is this fixed now? Bing Jixie nodded. Irina looked at the pile of tools that Wayne had bought before and said, these things are not useful yet. Ice Child Evil Dao. I didn't say what I needed. Wayne stood there dumbfounded, the hammer in his hand also falling to the ground. Why didn't you tell me earlier, so I bought these things for nothing? Cornelia smiled and said, I just realized now that repairing things doesn't necessarily have to be done with those hammers and screws. Wayne's boss was unhappy and said, has this armor really been repaired? I think others need to use these things to repair things. Look, aren't those people repairing equipment next to you all? Irina looked at the people next to her, and as expected, everyone was busy with various models of tools, which made her somewhat suspicious. Bing Jixie didn't say anything, just reached out a hand. What? Cornelia asked in confusion. Money, oh, I'm sorry. Cornelia immediately took the money from her own purse and gave it to him. Wayne stopped and said, wait a minute, Cornelia. We don't know if he's really a repairman yet. Cornelia said, for us, this doesn't cost much either. Wayne firmly said, although the money is not much, we can't let anyone deceive us. Everyone else is exhausted, and I don't believe that this armor can be repaired with just a few moves. If we want to pay, we'll have to return the task before giving it. Irina also felt that Wayne was right. Let's go hand in the task first and then give him the money. Wait a moment. Bing Jixie saw that they were leaving and said, leave one person behind. Wayne and the others were taken aback and immediately understood what he meant. They shouted, why, are you afraid we'll run away? But Nilia is the most prestigious young lady of the Isabel family. Can't we deceive you? Even as a servant of the Isabel family, I won't owe you money. Wayne was not angry about those few dollars. For nobles, the family name is reputation and honor. Bing Jixie's words may make others feel disrespectful towards their family name. Bing Jixie didn't speak, just stood there with her head down. Cornelia felt a bit embarrassed and finally said, Wayne, you and Irina can go to the union to hand over tasks. I'll stay here. No way, Wayne immediately disagreed. You want me to stay here and see how I deal with this impolite little guy? Cornelia said, all right, you guys go quickly. He helped us so much, he just wanted 15 gold coins. If we leave like this, won't he get nothing? Wayne saw that Cornelia was saying this, so he had to leave with Irina. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Arena and Gambling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Arena and Gambling. After Wayne and Irina left, Nelia stood there awkwardly for a while. Bing Jixie remained silent, leaning alone under the stone pier with a booklet in hand, but Nelia didn't know what to do. Finally, Cornelia broke the awkward atmosphere and walked up to ask, what are you looking at? Can I take a look? Bing Jixie closed the booklet and said, no way. But Nelia didn't expect him to answer like that, which made her even more embarrassed. She didn't know what to say next. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise from the other side of the duel, and the onlookers were all discussing. Cornelia thought of going over there to see what was happening, and after just 2 steps, she turned back and said, Bing Jixie, don't you want to take a look? Oh. Bing Jixie also followed along. He wasn't actually interested in these martial arts competitions, and had to pass the time before to take a look. In the crowd, 2 people stood opposite each other on a 40 by 40 meter square stone platform. One was in his 20s holding a red gemstone wand, while the other held a magic book from a book. He was wearing a finely crafted green magic robe with a medal for an intermediate magician hanging from it. Intermediate magicians are also known as green-robed mages. Although green robes can be bought everywhere, there is an unwritten rule in the wizarding world that uses the color of the magic robe to distinguish between different levels of magicians. The other person was holding a broad sword in both hands, wearing only a scale armor to protect themselves. As a close combat warrior, a piece of scale armor is far from enough. The people around the stage were all discussing and pointing at the magician on stage. Cornelia saw that the magician was dressed so beautifully, he must be a person of status. After hearing the onlookers explain it in detail, she exclaimed in surprise, "He is Hiroha." Bing Jixia asked as she looked at her. Cornelia explained, "Bridget Hiroha is from the Bridget family, one of the 5 major families in the Imperial capital. I heard he has been studying magic in the Royal Inner School, but I didn't expect to become an intermediate green-robed wizard at such a young age." "Is the Royal Inner School very good?" Bing Jixia asked a well-understood question. Cornelia said, "Of course. The students at the Royal Inner School are all personally guided by the palace magicians, basically one teacher and one learner, which is much better than studying in the academy. However, the Royal Inner School only teaches royal relatives and extremely noble children. My father originally wanted to send me to the Royal Inner School, but unfortunately did not." Bing Jixia nodded lightly, ignoring the loss of Cornelia beside her. There was another exclamation of surprise in the crowd, and everyone stepped aside. Walking into the crowd was Kristen, one of the 5 major families of the Imperial capital that Peter Law referred to as similar to Ice Child Evil. Cornelia exclaimed in surprise again and quickly retreated a bit. A slight blush appeared on his face as he looked at the young man with snow-white hair and a cold expression. Among the entire crowd, only Bing Jixia remained motionless. This was his second time meeting this guy, who was known as the first genius of the Imperial capital. The same white hair, the same handsome cheeks, and almost the same height, if it weren't for someone who showed indifference, someone with a casual expression, a pair of red and black eyes, almost all would be considered brothers. Of course, Bing Jixia and Baimoy don't look alike. Baimoy glanced at the guy standing next to him wearing a tattered magic hat, motionless, and then turned to the stage, seemingly oblivious to the surrounding exclamations and admiration. Hiroha naturally noticed Baimoy's arrival and smiled somewhat contemptuously. "Oh, how could the ice cubes from Kristen's house also come here?" Baimoyajin didn't pay attention to him, just stood there and watched like that. Hiroha seemed indifferent to his rudeness in not responding to his words, but simply smiled and said, "I just received this intermediate wizard's medal a few days ago. How about it? It's quite beautiful, isn't it? I've competed with all the guys of our generation in the 5 major families of the Imperial capital, except for you, Ursula, and Kelt. I'll come and compete with you when I've sorted out this guy." Baimoy suddenly said coldly, "Let's wait until you clean him up." Hiroha frowned, wondering if he had any manners, and was looked down upon by Baimoy, who was also a few years younger than him in the same generation of the 5 major families. He couldn't help but be angry. He suddenly laughed and said, "What do you mean? Do you think I, the green-robed wizard, can't even defeat a beginner warrior?" He threw the book aside and pressed both hands on the red gemstone of the magic wand. People around him felt the air getting hot, and the powerful magic guided the fire element to rotate around him. 3 slender red fire snakes transformed and danced around him in a dazzling manner. It's a high-level magic flame dancing snake. What a powerful magic, it can control 3. The people around were amazed. Another person said, "Hey, isn't it an intermediate magician? Why is the advanced magic cast so strong? It's clear that even the advanced magician has the strength. That swordsman is really miserable now. How could he possibly compare to the students in the Royal Academy?" The discussion below made the swordsman on stage also start to sweat, his eyes fixed on Hiroha tightly. There were 2 people downstairs who seemed to be friends with the swordsman. They whispered behind him, "Hey, why don't you stop fighting? Anyway, we've earned enough money, and we've also got the repair equipment and accommodation expenses. Let's go." The swordsman swallowed a mouthful of saliva, as if he had the same idea in his heart. Unexpectedly, a few good people suddenly set up a gambling game and said, come on, I'll start the game as a banker. If you want to gamble, come and buy it quickly. When everyone heard that another gambling game had started, they all surrounded with a commotion. I'll buy 20 silver Hiroha victories. I'll also buy 1 gold Hiroha victories. And I'll buy 50 silver coins, banker. Don't lose money. A large group of people all bought Hiroha victories, but they are one of the 5 major families and a magician who has studied in the Royal Inner School. Their powerful strength is also in front of them. The 2 companions of the swordsman secretly said that they were not good. They couldn't even leave now if they wanted to. If this gambling game didn't start, those people wouldn't beat them to death. Hiroha stood on the stage, looking at the crowd below, smiled slightly, and said proudly, how about Baimoy? Do you want to buy me and win too? Baimoy looked at the 2 companions under the swordsman's stage. Both of those guys were wearing metal armor, but both were already damaged and carrying a pair of broken armor in their hands. Their armor also bears a curved red moon shape, which is a print only worn by soldiers who have served in the Magic Moon Empire. The few guys who opened the gambling game saw that the money on the table was piled up like a small hill, but all of it was won by buying Hiroha. If it was really Hiroha who won, then the banker would have to pay for it. Unexpectedly, those guys stopped those who still wanted to buy and used a big pocket to pack the front one on the big table. The odds difference also widened as more and more people joined the gambling table. These people were all betting on him, as if they were determined that Hiroha would not lose, and those with large sums of money even came to buy them with gold vouchers stored in the bank. On stage, Hiroha's eyebrows lit up with joy and he looked at Baimoy with satisfaction. Baimoy gave him a cold glance and walked calmly to the gambling table, taking out a gold coin and placing it on the empty swordsman's side. To his surprise, someone was 1 step ahead of him and placed a gold coin at the swordsman's place. Baimoy looked up and found that this person was the one standing next to him motionless. The actions of Baimoy and Bingshixi naturally caught everyone's attention, and they all watched them quietly. Many people hesitated again, even Kristen. Baimoy bought the swordsman victory, should we also follow suit to buy it? Hiroha on stage laughed and said, I knew you would do this. Do you want to make a name for yourself with just 1 gold coin? Yes, you can earn some pocket money even if you win, and losing is just a gold coin. Hiroi's words made many people realize. Yes, he only bought 1 gold coin. Oh, luckily he didn't follow along to buy it. Everyone felt the same way. The person who opened the gambling game didn't even remember their names, so they must have bought swordsman and won just like Moi and Bingshixia. Alright, I'm sure I'll leave. I've bought all of them yet, don't delay everyone from watching the main show. Cornelia next to her admired Baimoy's behavior while also being surprised that the ice child Evil, who looked like a little brother, would also buy swordsman to win, and even buy in front of Baimoy. It's just sensationalism. If you want to do something shocking, it depends on whether the person you bet on has the ability. Hiroha snorted lightly and looked at his opponent's swordsman with disdain. He picked up the book on the ground and patted it, handing it to someone next to him to help him hold it. The swordsman on stage looked at the opponent's clean and brand new magic robe and the beautiful intermediate wizard medal, with a smile on his face as if he had gained confidence. He walked forward and saluted, Are you ready? Let's start. Hiroha was unhappy with the swordsman's words and said, What does it mean that I'm okay? Don't blame me for not being lenient later. 2 people exchanged a bow before the fight. Hiroha immediately silently recited a magical spell, and a sizzling lightning burst out from his palm, shooting an electric current from his fingertips. Thunder magic is very harmful to swordsmen wearing metal coats, but the swordsmen seemed to have anticipated it before. As they dodged sideways, they carried war energy on their bodies. The metal sword covered in war energy interrupted the incoming electric current and attached lightning to the sword, chopping it towards them. Everyone in the audience was paying special attention to the battle. Whenever Harahasai displayed a magic, everyone in the audience cheered, but every time the swordsman narrowly avoided his magic, he fell silent again. At first, Horoha was full of confidence, forcing the swordsman several times to feel embarrassed, but after more than a dozen spells passed, he couldn't help but be secretly surprised in his heart. Every time I cast a spell, the opponent seemed to be able to anticipate it and made a judgment early on, avoiding his attacks one after another. Although there were also a few spells that hit him, those were just a few insignificant interfering fireballs. On the other hand, the swordsman became more confident and motivated as he fought, and on the contrary, he pushed the Horoha mage to the corner of the arena several times, all of which were shaken away by the opponent's powerful magic. However, he did not lose heart because of this, and the speed of his sword was even faster with each move. Sometimes, before the opponent could cast a magic, he could already see that he had thought of a solution early on. The people below remained silent and silently watched the stage one by one. Losing a good mindset, Horoha's movements became frantic and sometimes he didn't even know what he was doing, and even picked up his wand to hit the opponent's head and fight against him. As a qualified magician, he has also learned considerable combat skills, but his current situation is completely chaotic. At this point, the swordsman had a clear upper peak, forcing Horohahan to increase his grip on his back. His brand new magic robe had been struck several times by the sword, but if it weren't for the good material, it would have already become fragments. Not long after, the swordsman's flying foot kicked Horoha off the arena, causing everyone below to sigh. "I'm sorry, I hit a little harder." The swordsman jumped off the stage and reached out to pull him up. He refused to take over and was stared at by the people around him with strange eyes. His face turned red like a monkey's butt, and he wished there was a crack in the ground that could not be penetrated. This time, his family's face was thrown wide open. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Analysis of Strength. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Analysis of Strength. The arena competition ended unexpectedly with the failure of Horoha. The gambling team clapped their hands and laughed. Okay, the game is over. Come on, win and take the money, don't come on, haha, what a game. Everyone suddenly started arguing loudly, pointing at Horoha and saying this and that. A guy was so angry that he rushed up to him and grabbed his clothes, cursing, "You bastard, what kind of ghost Bridget family? It's actually this kind of person who comes out. An intermediate magician can't even defeat a junior warrior, causing me to lose so much money. I don't care, you compensate me, you compensate me." A few people who didn't lose much by the side gloated and said, "Oh, I'm losing a lot now. At first, I was so arrogant. It turned out to be just a gimmick, not a useful one." With each word spoken by a few people, the 20-year-old man in Horoha was almost crying, pushing the crowd and rushing out. Everyone cursed loudly, watching as the big bag of money became the property of the banker, with only 2 people winning 1,000 gold coins. A few people said unwillingly, "Bastard, if I had known I had bought a few gold coin swordsmen to win, it's really unlucky." "Hey banker, you're not the one who came to cheat us out of money, are you?" The person who opened the shop couldn't stop laughing happily and said, "How could that be? What kind of person is that? The grandson of the Bridget family, this money is just a small sum in their eyes. Do they deserve to lose their family reputation to deceive you?" Everyone is not unaware of this truth, but they are holding their breath and feeling uncomfortable after losing money, insisting that the banker is with Bridget. The person who opened the village was about to give 1,000 gold coins to Baimoy and Bingshixi, but Baimoy refused. 1,000 coins is not enough, I want 10,000 gold coins. The banker and everyone around were stunned, not expecting that people from the 5 major families would also say such red-mouthed and white-toothed words. Baimoy said coldly, "I want Ursula to pay for my money." A few people from Kaizwang laughed and said, "You can tell." Baimoy remained silent, and those few people quickly went to find their owners. After a while, Ursula walked over with a somewhat playful smile and said, how could you see that again? I can't deceive you every time. Baimoy said, is it this boring trick of you telling Celt something is wrong and leaving me here alone? No, 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 Ursula quickly waved and smiled. It's really something. Celt's sister got a phantom beast and wanted you to see it. When I came back and saw you watching the arena here, I ordered them to play the next round. Hee, don't be angry, don't be angry, 100 magic crystal coins will be given to him right away. He then took out a 100 gold scroll and gave it to him. Several servants who opened the gambling game looked at Ursula, as if asking what to do with the winning money. Ursula waved her hand impatiently and said, do you still want me to carry back such a big bag of things? If I win, it's yours. Take it away quickly. Several servants were so happy that they said several extremely pleasing flattery words. Ursula rubbed her hair and pondered incessantly, how do you think I'm playing the game? Suddenly, she noticed something. In a fit of anger, she pulled back several servants who were about to leave, and one of them gave a punch. You idiots! Have you any brains to ask you to change your clothes but not your shoes? Originally, the shoes of those who opened the gambling game also had the griffin emblem of the Alexia family printed on them. Suddenly, a hand appeared in front of Ursula Lamian Noodles. Ursula looked at the guy with the magic hat in doubt. Why? The servants of Ursula said, oh, I forgot. He also bought a gold coin to bet on that swordsman's victory. Oh, Ursula looked somewhat surprised at the man who was slightly shorter than herself, and with a worried face, she took out a gold scroll of 100 magic crystals. My father is going to scold me again. Ice childish evil did not catch. What? Ursula looked at him puzzled. Ice child evil way. I want 1,000 gold coins. The two people who opened the gambling game said, He only bought one gold coin, with a probability of 1,000. Ursula smiled and pointed at the golden scroll, saying, well, don't you know that? Yes, yes, some people never see the golden scroll in their lifetime, let alone you're still a child. I'll tell you. I know, you don't have to say so much, I want 1,000 gold coins. Bing Jixie ignored his explanation at all. Ursula was stunned on the spot. Behind Bing Jixie, Cornelia pulled at the corner of his clothes and whispered, Hey Bing Jixie, that gold scroll is worth 10,000 gold coins. I know I won 1,000, as long as I deserve it, I don't want any charity from others, Bing Jixie said to Cornelia and also to Ursula in front of her. Baimoy frowned slightly and looked at him coldly. Ursula chuckled and said, don't look small, you're quite ambitious. He instructed his servants to take out a bag of 1,000 gold coins and hand it to him. What's your name for the 1,000 gold coins I gave you? Thank you. Bing Jixie smiled at him and turned around with the money before leaving. Hey, you. Ursula sighed as he saw the boy walking away. He's really a strange guy. Do you know him? His last question was from Baimoy. Baimoy didn't respond to his words and walked out of the crowd. Hey, you two really have the same moral character, Ursula caught up and said, wait for me, hey, why are you asking for so much money? Cornelia's heart kept pounding and pounding until Baimoy disappeared from sight before she regained her senses and went to find Bing's Hixie. Bing Jixie has already bought 2 ice creams and leaned against the stone platform for repairing equipment, giving Cornelia one. Thank you. Cornelia stood there awkwardly waiting as before, her eyes occasionally glancing at Bing Jixie beside her and thinking to herself, what a strange guy. What happened to those 2 guys? After a long time, Irina and Wayne, who had handed over the task, still didn't come back. Due to the hot weather, Nilia was sweating profusely, with a restless and anxious expression on her face, while Bing Jixie still leaned against the stone pier as if nothing had happened, showing no signs of anxiety. Cornelia was really bored waiting and started talking to Bing Jixie again. Bing Jixie, did you just get a lot of money? Bing Bing Jixie lifted her head, rubbed her sleepy eyes, yawned, and asked, "What?" Cornelia felt depressed in her heart and said, "He fell asleep in such a noisy place, really." She smiled apologetically and said, "I'm sorry to disturb your rest." "Oh, it's okay." Bing Jixie pulled down the brim of her hat as if she was ready to sleep again. Cornelia quickly stopped him, she didn't want to wait here alone like a fool. "I have a question I can't understand, I want to ask you." "What?" "Ice childish cult." "Just." Cornelia said, "It was just the battle just now. How could you buy that swordsman to win? Or would you want to lose for just a gold coin, and win and earn a lot of money?" Bing Jixie yawned again and said, "Oh, that one, I guess so." "Oh, I thought there might be some other reason." But Nilia lowered her head, looking a bit disappointed. Bing Jixie took off his hat and glanced at the sunlight. The dazzling light immediately cleared his drowsiness, and then put on his hat again, saying, "Do you really not know?" What?" Cornelia reacted, "What's really the reason?" Bing Jixie nodded and said, "Well, it's practical combat. Judging a person's strength doesn't entirely depend on the size of their strength, and practical combat experience is also important. The swordsman who fought with his companions on the battlefield just now clearly often has rich experience against enemies, which often allows him to make the most accurate judgments in dangerous moments. And that magician is just a beautiful flower cultivated in a greenhouse. Although his ability is strong, he doesn't have much practical combat experience. Coupled with environmental factors, his mind becomes restless and naturally reveals its flaws." Cornelia carefully recalled the situation during the war earlier and nodded incessantly, "That's really it. You're so amazing, you can even think of this factor." "It's not that I'm amazing, it's that you're still too young." Cornelia was taken aback by his words and sneered, "What, you look smaller than me, pretending to be an adult and saying I'm young." Bing Jixie obviously didn't want to continue talking about this boring topic. She turned her head and looked at the teleportation array on the street corner, saying, "They're here." Cornelia turned her head and indeed saw Irina and Wayne running towards this side with joy. Bing Jixie quickly reached out to Cornelia. Cornelia was stunned for a moment, truly unable to understand what was going on in his mind. Someone gave him 10,000 gold coins instead of just 1,000, but he waited here for over an hour for these 15 gold coins. I had to give him the money. Bing Jixie still took the money and left, just like before, saying thank you. Wayne and the others ran over excitedly and didn't see the guy wearing the hat. They asked, "Where's that kid?" "There." Cornelia casually pointed, but didn't see any trace of Bing Jixie before saying, "I just gave him money, he left." "Oh, what a pity." Wayne patted his palm regretfully. "What's wrong?" But Nilia didn't understand. Irina said, "Wayne wants to make friends with that guy." Cornelia was surprised and said, "Hey. Did the sun come out from the south today?" Wayne, who has always been indifferent to others, actually took the initiative to make friends with others. Irina covered her mouth and smiled. "What's so funny?" Wayne said reluctantly, "When you meet someone worth making friends with, of course you have to make friends." Cornelia asked curiously, "Irina, what's going on?" Irina showed her mercenary card to Cornelia before saying, "It's like this. Just now, the guild members evaluated the armor repair, and the equipment repair rate was as high as 99%. 99%. Cornelia was also surprised. Irina continued, "The old gentleman said that although the armor's intact rate needs to reach over 90% to be confirmed to be repaired, those who can repair 94% are already experts in repairing items. There are not many people in the world who can repair to this level, unless they have a good understanding of the nature of the equipment and use the most correct method to repair it. He also said that we are geniuses." Wayne nodded excitedly and said, "We told him about the armor being corroded by the acid of the Dembrian worm." Unexpectedly, the old man agreed and increased the difficulty of the task by 1 level, giving Irina 240 work points. And because it was repaired too well, he also rewarded Irina with an additional 100 work points. Cornelia didn't expect the situation to be so good either. While feeling happy for Irina, she became even more concerned about the little wizard named Bingshixie. End of this chapter.